January 14th, 1970. Diana Ross said goodbye to more than just a group. Las Vegas, the most successful female group in history, was about to implode. Not on stage, but in a tiny dressing room where three friends discovered that fame had built walls between their hearts. What Diana confessed that night would shatter bonds forged in childhood and reveal that sometimes success is the loneliest achievement of all. My dear friends, tonight I want to share with you a story that breaks my heart every time I think about it. It's about friendship, about dreams, and about the price we sometimes pay when those dreams come true. This is the untold story of how success can change us in ways we never expected, and how the people we love most can become strangers when fame enters the picture. Let me take you back to that cold January evening in 1970. The neon lights of Las Vegas cast long shadows across the desert, painting everything in shades of electric blue and pink. Inside the Frontier Hotel, the air was thick with cigarette smoke and the lingering echo of applause that had filled the showroom just minutes earlier. The Supremes had just taken their final bow together. Diana Ross, Mary Wilson, and Florence Ballard had performed "Someday We'll Be Together" with smiles plastered on their faces. But underneath those smiles was a tension that had been building for months. Diana Ross, at 25 years old, stood at the crossroads of her life. She was beautiful, successful, and adored by millions. Her voice had carried the Supremes to 12 #1 hits, making them the most commercially successful Motown act and one of the world's best-selling girl groups. But success, she was learning, came with a price she hadn't expected to pay. Backstage, the three women walked through the narrow corridor that led to their shared dressing room. Their heels clicked against the linoleum floor in perfect rhythm, just like they had learned to do everything else together over the past 15 years. But tonight, that rhythm felt different. Tonight, it felt like a funeral march. The dressing room was small, cramped, barely large enough for the three of them to change costumes during their usual quick changes. Mirrors lined one wall, reflecting their images back at them under harsh fluorescent lights. Sequined gowns hung on portable racks, sparkling like fallen stars under the unforgiving illumination. Mary Wilson, always the peacekeeper of the group, tried to break the tension with forced cheerfulness. "Well, ladies," she said, beginning to remove her earrings, "another successful show. The audience loved us tonight." Her voice carried a note of desperation, as if she could will everything back to normal through sheer determination. Florence Ballard, the original founder of the group, who had discovered Diana singing in a housing project in Detroit, said nothing. She sat heavily in one of the metal chairs, her hands folded in her lap, staring at the floor. Florence had watched her role in the group diminish over the years, watched as Diana moved from backup singer to lead, watched as her own dreams were slowly eclipsed by someone else's ambition. Diana stood with her back to her friends, facing the mirror but not really seeing her reflection. In the glass, she could see Mary and Florence behind her, and for a moment she remembered when they were just three teenage girls from the projects with stars in their eyes and voices full of hope, when they had called themselves the Primettes and sang at local talent shows, sharing one microphone and dreaming of something bigger. That was before Berry Gordy Jr., the founder of Motown Records, had seen something special in them, before they had become the Supremes, before Diana had been singled out as the face and voice of the group, before success had started to change everything about who they were to each other. "We need to talk," Diana said quietly, still facing the mirror. Her voice was calm, controlled, but there was something underneath it that made both Mary and Florence look up sharply. Mary's hands paused in the act of removing her stage makeup. "Diana, if this is about the tour schedule changes, we can discuss it with Barry tomorrow. Tonight, let's just celebrate what we've accomplished."
But Diana turned around slowly, and when she faced her friends, her expression was unlike anything they had seen before. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was something closer to resignation, mixed with a determination that frightened them both. "There won't be a tour schedule," Diana said, her words falling into the small room like stones dropped into still water. "This was our last performance together." The silence that followed was profound. Florence looked up from her hands for the first time all evening, her eyes wide with disbelief. Mary felt her stomach drop, as if she were falling from a great height. "What are you talking about?" Mary whispered. "We have commitments. We have contracts. We have—" "I'm leaving the Supremes," Diana said simply. "Barry has offered me a solo contract, and I've decided to take it." The words hung in the air between them like a physical presence. Florence stood up slowly, her chair scraping against the floor. Mary felt tears begin to gather in her eyes, but she blinked them back, trying to process what she was hearing. "When?" asked Florence, her voice hoarse. "When did you decide this?" Diana looked at the floor for a moment before answering. "I've been thinking about it for months. The solo contract? Barry presented it to me 6 weeks ago. I signed it 3 weeks ago." 3 weeks ago? Mary felt the betrayal like a knife in her chest. 3 weeks they had been performing together, laughing together, planning their futures together, and Diana had already decided to leave. 3 weeks of lies by omission. "Why didn't you tell us?" Mary's voice broke on the last word. "We're supposed to be friends. We're supposed to be family." This was when Diana said the words that would haunt all 3 of them forever. She looked directly at Mary, then at Florence, and spoke with a clarity that was somehow more devastating than anger would have been. "Because," Diana said slowly, "I realized that I was never your friend. I was your ticket out of Detroit, and you were mine. But now I have a better ticket." The cruelty of it was breathtaking, not because Diana was wrong, but because she was partially right, and all 3 of them knew it. Their friendship had been built on mutual need, mutual ambition, mutual dreams of escape. But somewhere along the way, it had become real. At least for Mary and Florence, it had become real. Florence stepped forward, and for a moment, Mary thought she might hit Diana. Instead, Florence spoke in a voice that was barely above a whisper, but carried more power than any scream could have. "We discovered you," Florence said. "You were nobody when I found you singing in that talent show. We brought you into this group. We shared everything with you, our dreams, our struggles, our families. And this is how you repay us?" Diana's composure cracked for just a moment. A flicker of pain crossed her face, quickly suppressed. "And I'm grateful for that, Flo, I really am. But I can't spend the rest of my life being grateful. I have to think about my future, my career, my potential." "What about our potential?" Mary asked, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. "What about what we built together?" "You can continue as the Supremes," Diana said, her voice becoming businesslike again. "Barry has already arranged for a replacement. Her name is Jean Terrell. She's very talented." A replacement. As if 15 years of friendship, of shared dreams, of sisterhood forged through struggle and success could be replaced by finding someone else who could sing harmony. Mary Wilson looked at Diana Ross, really looked at her, and realized that her childhood friend was gone. The girl who had shared secrets and dreams and fears had been replaced by someone who spoke about career and potential and arrangements as if people were interchangeable parts in a business machine. "You've changed," Mary said quietly. "Fame has changed you into someone I don't recognize." Diana's mask slipped again just for a moment, and Mary caught a glimpse of the scared, uncertain girl underneath. "Maybe I have changed," Diana admitted. "But maybe I had to change to survive."
Maybe we all did. The difference is I'm honest about it. Florence shook her head slowly. No, Diana, the difference is you're willing to sacrifice anything and anyone to get what you want. That's not change. That's choice. The three women stood, looking at each other across the small dressing room, and the distance between them felt like an ocean. 15 years of shared history, of laughter and tears and dreams and disappointments, reduced to this moment of brutal honesty and devastating betrayal. Diana picked up her purse and coat from the chair where she had placed them. "The lawyers will handle the details," she said, her voice once again controlled and professional. "I'll be starting recording my solo album next month." She walked to the door, then paused with her hand on the handle. For a moment, it seemed like she might turn around, might say something to bridge the chasm that had opened between them, might apologize, or explain, or simply acknowledge that this was ending something precious. Instead, she spoke without turning around. "I hope you understand someday that this isn't personal. This is business." And with that, she was gone, leaving Mary and Florence alone in the dressing room, with the echoes of a friendship that had just died. Mary and Florence sat in silence for a long time after Diana left. The dressing room, which had seemed small when all three of them were there, now felt vast and empty. The sequined gowns hanging on the racks looked like ghosts of who they used to be. "Did we really mean so little to her?" Mary asked finally. Florence was staring at the door where Diana had exited. "I think we meant everything to her," she said quietly. "That's why she had to convince herself we meant nothing. It's the only way she could leave." The aftermath of that night rippled through all their lives. Diana Ross went on to achieve massive success as a solo artist, becoming one of the most recognizable entertainers in the world. She recorded hit after hit, starred in movies, and became a global icon. But those who knew her best said that something in her eyes was different after that night in Las Vegas. Mary Wilson and Florence Ballard continued as the Supremes with Jean Terrell, but it was never the same. How could it be? The magic of the Supremes hadn't just been the voices or the choreography or the glamorous gowns. It had been the alchemy of three friends who had lifted each other up from poverty and obscurity to stardom. Florence left the group in 1967, before that final night in Las Vegas, her relationship with Diana having deteriorated beyond repair. She struggled with personal demons and financial problems for years, before her death in 1976 at the age of 32. My dear friends, this story stays with me because it reminds us of something we often forget in our achievement-focused world. Success is meaningless if we have to become someone we don't like to achieve it. Fame is hollow if we have to step on the people we love to reach it. Diana Ross chose ambition over friendship, and while history will remember her as a legend, those who loved her will remember the girl she used to be before success changed her heart. The saddest part isn't that she left the Supremes. The saddest part is that she convinced herself it was just business when everyone knew it was breaking her heart. What would you choose if you had to pick between your dreams and your friendships? How much are you willing to sacrifice to get what you want? These are questions we all face, maybe not on the scale that Diana did, but in our own lives, in our own ways. I hope this story reminds you to hold on to the people who love you for who you are, not for what you might become. Success without love is just noise, and fame without friendship is just loneliness dressed up in pretty clothes. Thank you for listening, my friends. Share your thoughts in the comments below about friendship, success, and the choices that define us.